I canceled my dream wedding to save my mother's life after a frantic call about emergency heart surgery. 2 weeks later, while sobbing over $25,000 in lost funds, I saw an Instagram notification. My unemployed brother had just bought a brand new truck, captioning it as a gift from our parents. I realized then that my mother's heart was fine, but mine had just been shattered by the family I had supported for 10 years. My name is Harper. I am 29 years old, and for the last 5 years, my life has been governed by a single line on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. I sat at my desk at OmniStream Solutions in downtown Chicago, ignoring the chatter of my coworkers as I stared at the glowing monitor. Row 1, column B. It was the most important cell in my financial universe. It read family transfer, $3,500. That number was not just a statistic. It was the mortgage payment for a 4-bedroom colonial house in Wisconsin that was far too big for 2 retired people. It was the premiums for gold-tier health insurance. It was the minimum payments on credit cards my parents swore they would stop maxing out. Every month, on the 1st, that money left my account and vanished into the black hole of my parents' mismanagement. To sustain that number, I lived a life that looked nothing like the success my job title suggested. I drove a 2015 Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper that I could not afford to fix. I lived in a drafty studio apartment with mismatched furniture I had scavenged from thrift stores, while my colleagues went downstairs to the bistro to buy $15 salads. I opened my Tupperware container and ate a turkey sandwich I had made at 6 in the morning. I denied myself everything so that my family would never have to feel the cold wind of reality. Then there was Caleb. My brother was 31 years old. He was currently unemployed, but my parents forbid anyone from using that word. They preferred to call him a waiting businessman or an entrepreneur in transition. While I was counting pennies to buy generic shampoo, Caleb was posting photos of his weekend trips and his new sneakers. My phone vibrated against the desk, breaking my concentration. The screen flashed Mom and Dad. My stomach tightened. It was only the 15th of the month. They never called this early unless something was wrong. Harper. My mother's voice was high and tight. Are you busy? I am at work, Mom, I whispered, ducking my head lower. Is everything okay? It is your father's back again. She sighed, the sound heavy with performed exhaustion. And the car is making that noise again. We are drowning here. Harper. Everything costs so much these days. I closed my eyes. I sent the transfer 2 weeks ago. Mom, $3,500. That should cover the bills. Well, things come up, she said defensively. Then her tone shifted, becoming wheedling and soft. And, well, it is Caleb. He is in trouble. I gripped the phone harder. What did he do now? He had a business opportunity, she said quickly. A sure thing. Some investment in a tech startup his friend told him about. But the friend, he disappeared. Caleb lost the investment money. He is devastated, Harper. He needs $2,000 to cover his rent and his car note, or he is going to lose his apartment. Mom, I do not have $2,000 to throw away, I hissed. Why doesn't Caleb get a job? A real job? How can you be so cruel? Her voice cracked. Your brother is depressed. He is trying his best. Family comes first. Harper, we raised you to care about your family, not to hoard your money while your brother suffers. If he loses his apartment, he will have to move back in with us, and you know your father's heart cannot take that stress. Do you want to kill your father? The guilt was a physical blow. It was the same weapon they had used against me since I was a little girl. If I said no, I was the villain. If I said yes, I was the victim. Fine, I said, my voice trembling. I will advance you next month's allowance, but I cannot send the full $3,500 next month. You have to understand that. Oh, thank you. Sweetie, I knew you were a good girl. I will tell Caleb you are saving him. He will be so relieved." She hung up without asking how I was. She never asked. I sat there in the silence of my cubicle, feeling hollowed out. I opened my banking app and made the transfer. Then, with a shaking hand, I clicked on a different savings account. It was labeled Wedding. $25,000. It had taken me and Liam 4 years to save that money. Every dollar in there represented a movie night we skipped, a vacation we didn't take, a dress I didn't buy. It was my escape pod. It was the promise that one day I would have a life that belonged to me. I stared at the balance, terrified that one day the family transfer line on my spreadsheet would come for this money too. I just hoped I would be strong enough to stop them before they took everything. Liam was the only person in the world who looked at me and saw something other than a bank account or a disappointment. He was an architect, a man who built sturdy, beautiful things from nothing, and for the last 4 years, he had been trying to build a foundation for me, too. He was patient in a way that often made me want to cry, standing by my side while I navigated the minefield of my family's expectations. "It is perfect, Harper," Liam said softly, squeezing my hand. "Look at the light." We were standing in the center of the old botanical gardens on the west side of the city. It was a vintage glass house, Victorian in style, with peeling white paint and panes of glass that turned the afternoon sun into a soft, golden haze. The air smelled of damp earth and blooming jasmine. It was the place I had dreamed of getting married in since I was a little girl cutting pictures out of bridal magazines. "It is expensive," I whispered, though my heart was already racing with desire. "The deposit is $10,000. We would have to pay it next week to hold the date for October." "We have the money," Liam reminded me, turning me to face him. "We have saved for exactly this. You deserve this. We deserve this." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "Okay, let's do it. Let's book it." The drive home was a blur of giddy excitement. I could not wait to tell my parents. In my mind, I imagined them finally being happy for me, perhaps even offering to help with the planning, or at least asking about the details. I dialed my mother's number as soon as we walked into our apartment. "Mom, great news," I said, unable to keep the tremble out of my voice. "Liam and I found the venue. We are putting the deposit down next week. It is that beautiful greenhouse I told you about." "Oh, that is nice," my mother said, her voice distracted. I could hear the television blaring in the background. "Listen, Harper, since you are on the phone, I needed to ask you something. Caleb has a very important interview coming up next week. A networking event, really. He needs to look the part." My smile faltered. "Mom, I just told you we are booking our wedding venue. I heard you, Harper, but this is your brother's future we are talking about. He cannot go in there wearing rags." He found a suit, a really sharp one, "but it is $800. "I told him you would want him to look his best." I closed my eyes, the joy draining out of me like water from a cracked cup. "I cannot buy him a suit. Mom, I am about to pay a $10,000 deposit." "Well, you do not have to be so selfish about it," she snapped, her tone shifting instantly. "We will figure it out. We always do. I just thought you would want to help." She hung up before I could say anything else. She did not ask about the date. She did not ask about the venue. She did not even ask how Liam was doing. Liam found me sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at my phone. He knew. He always knew. They did not care, did they? He asked quietly. "They care." I lied, though the words tasted like ash. "They are just stressed. Caleb needs a suit." Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Harper, you do realize this is not normal, right? You are not their parent. You are not Caleb's bank. We are about to start our own life. You cannot keep setting yourself on fire to keep them warm." "It is my duty, Liam," I said, reciting the script I had learned since childhood. "They raised me. They need help. I cannot just abandon them." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he stopped when he saw the exhaustion in my eyes. Instead, he pulled me into a hug. Later that afternoon, a small miracle happened. I opened my mail to find a letter from OmniStream Solutions. It was a performance bonus notification, $3,000. It was not a fortune, but it was enough to cover the emergency money I had sent for Caleb earlier in the month and still keep our wedding fund intact. "See," I told Liam over dinner that night at a small Italian place we loved, "everything is working out. The universe is balancing the books." We drank red wine and let ourselves dream. We talked about the wedding, about the music we would play, about the house we would buy one day where I would not have to pay anyone else's mortgage. For a few hours, the heavy weight on my shoulders lifted. I felt light. I felt hopeful. We went to bed with the windows open, the city sounds drifting in. I fell asleep with my head on Liam's chest, thinking that, finally, my turn for happiness had arrived. Then, at 2 a.m, the phone rang. It was a shrill, violent sound in the quiet dark. I jolted awake, my heart hammering against my ribs. I fumbled for the device on the nightstand, squinting at the bright screen. It was my father. "Hello," I answered, my voice thick with sleep. "Harper." My father's voice was unrecognizable. He was sobbing, a raw, terrifying sound I had never heard from him before. "Harper, it is your mother. You need to listen to me. Oh God, Harper, please." The blood ran cold in my veins. Beside me, Liam stirred, sensing the sudden shift in the air. I sat up straight, clutching the phone with both hands. "Dad, what happened? What is wrong?" She collapsed. He choked out. "The doctors. They say it is bad. Harper, it is her heart. Oh God, I don't know what we are going to do." "Dad, please, take a breath," I stammered, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. My other hand flew to my chest, trying to contain the panic rising there like bile. "She is dying, Harper. My Linda is dying," he wailed, the sound distorted by static and hysteria. "The doctor said it is severe aortic stenosis. Her valve. It is basically closed shut. She needs surgery right now. Or she won't make it through the night." Okay. Surgery," I said, my mind racing. "That is what hospitals are for. They will operate. Her insurance covers the emergency room. Right, we pay the premiums every month." "No." He screamed the word, shocking me into silence. "That is the problem. The standard procedure is too risky because of her age and blood pressure. They have to do a transcatheter replacement. It is a new method, the insurance company. Those bastards denied the claim 10 minutes ago. They called it elective. Elective. Can you believe that?" I felt the room spinning. "So appeal it. We can fight them later." "We don't have later." He sobbed. "The hospital administrator is standing right here. They need the payment up front to book the specialized equipment. They need $25,000, Harper, right now, or they can't prep the theater." $25,000. The number hit me like a physical slap. It was the exact amount sitting in my savings account. The exact amount Liam and I had scraped together over 4 agonizing years. "Let me speak to the doctor," I said, my voice shaking. "Put the administrator on the phone. I will give them my credit card information for a hold. They are in the prep room. They are scrubbing in," he yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. "They won't talk to you. They just need the wire transfer confirmation. Harper, please." I tried to get a loan. I called the emergency line at the bank, but you know what Caleb did. You know he ruined our credit score with those business loans he took out in our name. We have nothing. We are worthless. I looked over at Liam. He was sleeping on his side, his face peaceful in the pale moonlight filtering through the curtains. He looked so happy, just hours ago. We were talking about our future. We were talking about freedom. "Dad," I whispered, tears spilling hot and fast down my cheeks. That is my wedding money. That is everything I have." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a heavy, suffocating silence that lasted only a second but felt like a lifetime. "So you are going to let her die." His voice dropped to a terrifying whisper. "Your mother. She carried you. She birthed you. She sacrificed her entire life to raise you. And now you are going to measure her life against a party. You are going to let my wife die because you want to wear a white dress. No, I didn't say." She is gasping for air. "Harper, I am watching her drown in her own body. How can you be so cold? How can you be so selfish?" The guilt was overwhelming. It crushed my ribs. It filled my throat. The programming installed in me since birth kicked in, overriding every logical thought in my brain. Family first. Sacrifice everything. You owe us. "Fine," I choked out. "Fine. Stop. I am doing it." I pulled the phone away from my ear, my vision blurred by tears. I opened the banking app. My thumb hovered over the account labeled Wedding Fund. It was a beautiful number. It was my hope. It was my escape. I clicked Transfer. I selected my father's account. I typed in $25,000. "Send," I whispered. The screen loaded for a second that felt like an eternity. Then a green checkmark appeared. Success. "I sent it," I said into the phone, my voice dead. "It is gone. It is all gone." "Oh, thank God," my father wept, his tone instantly shifting from accusation to relief. "You are a good daughter. Harper, you saved her. I have to go. I have to show them the proof." The line went dead. I dropped the phone on the duvet. I couldn't breathe. I scrambled out of bed, terrified I would wake Liam with my sobbing, and ran into the bathroom. I locked the door and slid down against the cold tiles. I pulled my knees to my chest and buried my face in my hands. I didn't make a sound, but my body shook violently. I had saved my mother, but as I sat there in the dark, I knew exactly what I had done. I had just paid for her life with my own happiness. I had just canceled my wedding. The morning sun felt like an interrogation light exposing a crime scene. I sat at the small kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Liam walked in, whistling softly, his hair still damp from the shower. He looked so hopeful, so ready to start the day that belonged to us. I had to break him. "Liam," I said, my voice sounding like it was coming from underwater. "Please sit down." He stopped whistling. The smile slid off his face as he took in my red, swollen eyes and the way my shoulders were hunched in defeat. He pulled out the chair opposite me and sat down slowly. "What is it?" he asked, his voice low and cautious. "Is it your mom? Did she?" "She is alive," I said. "She is going to be okay. But, Liam, the money, the wedding fund, it is gone." He stared at me, blinking as if I had spoken a language he did not understand. "What do you mean, gone? My dad called last night. While you were sleeping, the insurance denied the surgery. They needed $25,000 up front to prep the theater. It was life or death. I transferred it." The silence that followed was heavier than any screaming match. Liam looked down at his hands, then back at me. There was no anger in his eyes, only a profound, crushing disappointment that hurt worse than rage. $25,000, he repeated softly. Then he looked me dead in the eye. "Harper, tell me the truth. Do you think, if you were the one in that hospital bed, do you think they would sell their house for you? Do you think they would sacrifice anything for you the way you just sacrificed our future for them?" "She is my mother, Liam," I whispered, unable to meet his gaze. "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," he said, standing up and walking to the window. You just never choose yourself. We spent the afternoon making the calls. I had to cancel the hold on the greenhouse. I had to cancel the photographer we had tentatively booked. We lost a few $100s in administrative fees, but that money meant nothing. What killed me was the tone of the coordinator's voice when I told her we were postponing indefinitely. She sounded pitying. I hated pity. Later that day, I called my father. My hands shook as I held the phone. "How is she?" I asked. "She is stable," he said, his voice remarkably calm compared to the hysteria of the night before. "The doctors got her stabilized. They have scheduled the surgery for next week, Tuesday morning." "I am coming home," I said immediately. "I have enough vacation days. I can drive up tonight and help take care of things until the operation." "No." The refusal was sharp and instant. "Absolutely not. Harper." "Why not? I want to see her." "The doctor said she needs absolute quiet," he insisted, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Her heart is too fragile right now. Seeing you. You know how emotional she gets around you. If she gets agitated, her blood pressure could spike, and the valve could fail before they even get her to the table. Do you want to take that risk?" "I just gave you $25,000. Dad," I said, feeling a cold knot form in my stomach. "I think I have a right to see the person I saved." "And we are grateful," he said quickly. "But we have to listen to the doctors. Stay in Chicago. Keep working. We will call you when she is out of surgery." When I told Liam this, he stopped chopping vegetables for dinner and set the knife down with a clatter. "That does not smell right." "Harper," he said tightly. "They take your life savings but won't let you ask for the medical records. Ask for the receipt from the hospital. I can't audit my parents while my mother is dying. Liam," I snapped, the stress finally causing me to fracture. "Why can't you just support me?" Liam didn't argue again, but the distance between us grew. We slept on opposite sides of the bed, a cold canyon of resentment separating us. I went back to OmniStream Solutions the next day like a zombie. I sat through meetings about project timelines and deliverables, nodding at the right times, taking notes I would never read. When the first of the month arrived, a notification popped up on my phone. It was time for the recurring transfer. I stared at the screen. I had just given them $25,000. Surely, I could skip this month. Surely, that massive sum covered the mortgage and the bills for a while. But then I heard my mother's voice in my head, complaining about the cost of post-surgery medication, about the special diet she would need. With a trembling finger, I approved the transfer. $3,500 left my account. I was bleeding dry, and I was holding the knife myself. In the break room, Sarah from accounting cornered me while I was staring blankly at the coffee machine. "So, Harper, did you guys pick a date? Yet I am dying to know if you went with the fall theme." I forced the corners of my mouth up into a shape that resembled a smile. It felt like the skin was cracking. We decided to wait." I lied, my voice hollow. "Just some personal issues came up. We want to make sure the timing is right." "Oh," Sarah said, her eyes widening. She clearly assumed Liam had gotten cold feet or that we were breaking up. "I am so sorry. That must be tough." "It is fine," I said, grabbing my coffee and fleeing back to my desk. I put my headphones on and typed furiously, burying myself in spreadsheets and emails. I worked until my eyes burned and my fingers cramped. I worked so I wouldn't have to think about the empty wedding fund, the silence in my apartment, or the fact that I had just paid a ransom for a mother who wouldn't even let me hold her hand. 2 weeks of silence had turned my anxiety into a dull, throbbing headache that sat permanently behind my eyes. I spent my days at work functioning on autopilot and my evenings staring at my phone, waiting for an update that never came. My father had stopped answering my calls, sending brief text messages instead. "She is resting. Doctors are monitoring. Do not disturb." I was sitting on my couch on a Thursday evening, mindlessly scrolling through Facebook, when the first crack in the facade appeared. My Aunt Janice, my mother's younger sister who lived 3 towns over, had posted a check-in at a place called the Mahogany Steakhouse. The caption read, "Celebrating life with the girls." Nothing beats a medium-rare ribeye and good company. I almost scrolled past it, but a splash of familiar blue caught my eye in the corner of the photo. I tapped the screen and pinched to zoom. In the background, slightly out of focus but unmistakable, sat my mother. She was not in a hospital gown. She was not hooked up to monitors. She was wearing her favorite blue floral blouse, holding a glass of red wine, and laughing with her head thrown back. I felt a cold prickle of confusion run down my spine. "That cannot be right," I whispered to the empty room. "She is supposed to be in pre-op prep. She is supposed to be dying." Maybe it was an old photo I checked the date stamp. Uploaded 45 minutes ago. My thumb hovered over the screen, my heart beating an erratic rhythm against my ribs. I switched apps to Instagram. If my parents were out, surely Caleb was with them. I tapped on my brother's profile icon. A new story had been uploaded 2 hours ago. The video opened with loud rap music blaring. The camera panned shakily around the interior of a vehicle that smelled of new leather through the screen. Then it cut to the exterior. It was a Ford F-150 Raptor, jet black, massive tires, aggressive grille. It was a monster of a truck, the kind that cost more than my annual salary. The camera zoomed in on the license plate. It was a temporary paper tag, the kind dealers issue for brand new purchases. Then the camera flipped to selfie mode. Caleb was grinning, dangling a set of keys in front of his face. He looked triumphant. He looked rich. I read the text overlaying the video. "Big moves only. Thanks to my angel investors, Mom and Dad, for believing in the vision. Miller Logistics is officially open for business. Entrepreneur grind new whip." The phone slipped from my hand and landed on the carpet with a soft thud. I sat there, frozen. My mind began to race, connecting dots I had been too terrified to see before. The desperate phone call at 2 a.m, the demand for an immediate wire transfer because credit cards would not work, the specific amount of $25,000, the adamant refusal to let me visit. "No," I said aloud, shaking my head violently. No, they wouldn't. They couldn't. But the logic was cold and undeniable. $25,000 was not the cost of a heart valve. It was the exact down payment needed for a luxury performance truck for a man with bad credit. I needed proof. Absolute, undeniable proof. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for Mercy General Hospital in Wisconsin, the facility my father had named during his hysterical call. My hands were trembling so badly I had to dial twice. "Mercy General, patient services." A woman's voice answered. I took a deep breath, channeling the professional voice I used for difficult clients at work. "Good evening. This is Sarah from Blue Cross Blue Shield Insurance Verification. I am calling to confirm admission details for a patient to authorize a procedure claim. Name is Linda Miller. Date of birth, March 12th, 1965. There was a pause, followed by the sound of typing. "One moment, please," the receptionist said. The hold music was a cheerful piano melody that made me want to scream. I stared at the wall, my nails digging into my palm. Please let me be wrong. I prayed. Please let her be sick. God, please let my mother actually be dying. "Ma'am," the receptionist returned. "I have searched our current inpatient registry and our scheduled surgery list for the past 30 days. We do not have a patient named Linda Miller." "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice cracking despite my best efforts. It was an emergency admission, severe aortic stenosis. She was supposed to be in the cardiac wing. "I have checked the cardiac unit specifically," the woman said, her tone firm but polite. "We have no record of that patient, no admission, no scheduled surgery, no emergency room intake in the last month. Is it possible she went to a different facility? No, I whispered. No, this is the only hospital in their county. Thank you. I ended the call. The silence in my apartment was deafening. I looked at the dark screen of my phone. The truth washed over me, not hot like anger, but cold like freezing water. There was no heart failure. There was no surgery. There was no life or death emergency. There was just a truck. My parents had not called me because they were scared of losing my mother. They had called me because Caleb wanted a new toy, and I was the only one stupid enough to pay for it. They had weaponized my love, my fear, and my loyalty to steal the future I had built with Liam. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak, but my mind was sharpening into a razor's edge. I walked to the window and looked out at the Chicago skyline. The tears I expected did not come. Instead, a low, dangerous heat began to burn in my chest. They wanted a naive daughter who would do anything for family. That daughter died the moment that receptionist said no record found. I turned back to my computer. It was time to stop being a victim. It was time to become an auditor. I did not scream. I did not throw my phone against the wall. I did not even cry. Instead, a strange, cold clarity settled over me, freezing the hot panic that had defined the last 2 weeks of my life. I remembered Liam's words from the morning after the transfer, when he begged me to ask for proof. At the time, I had called him cruel. Now, I realized he was the only person who had actually been trying to protect me. I opened my laptop and cracked my knuckles. It was time to stop being a hysterical daughter and start being a project manager. I needed data. First, I navigated to the Blue Cross Blue Shield portal. Since I paid the premiums every month, the login credentials were saved in my browser. I clicked on the Claims tab and filtered for the last 30 days. Come on, I whispered to the screen. Show me something. The page loaded. The list was short. There was a prescription refill for Dad's cholesterol medication and a dental claim for a cleaning and fluoride treatment for Mom dated last Tuesday. That was it. No emergency room code, no cardiology consultation, no surgery pre-authorization. My mother had been getting her teeth polished while I was sobbing on my bathroom floor, believing she was taking her last breath. I took a screenshot and saved it to a new folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. Next, I needed eyes on the ground. I called Liam at work. I need that guy, I said, my voice flat. The private investigator you used for the background checks on your contractors. Mark. Harper. Liam sounded worried. What is going on? I just need his number. Liam. Please. I hired Mark an hour later. He was cheap and efficient. I told him I just needed 48 hours of surveillance on my parents' house in Wisconsin, specifically looking for medical equipment, nurses, or signs of recovery. 2 days later, the email from Mark arrived. I opened the attachment with steady hands. The first photo showed my mother walking out of a T.J. Maxx, holding 3 large bags. She looked vibrant, her cheeks flushed with health, not a woman recovering from open-heart surgery. The second photo showed my father at the local driving range, swinging a golf club with a range of motion that completely contradicted the bad back he had complained about for years whenever I asked him to help with anything. But the third photo was the one that made my stomach turn. Parked in their driveway, shining under the afternoon sun, was the black Ford F-150 Raptor. It took up almost the entire parking pad. I logged into their Wells Fargo account next. Years ago, when they had nearly lost the house due to credit card debt, I had bailed them out on the condition that I get view-only access to monitor their spending. They had likely forgotten I still had the password. I scrolled to the date of my transfer. There was the deposit incoming wire, Harper Miller, $25,000. Exactly 4 hours later, there was a debit outgoing wire, Midwest Ford and Truck Center, $25,000. They hadn't even waited a full day. The money had barely touched the account before they spent it. I dug deeper, checking the connected email account my father used for banking alerts. I searched for Caleb's name. I found an email chain from the day before my transfer. My father had written, "Don't worry, son. Your sister is soft. I just have to scare her a little. If I tell her mom is dying, she will open the wallet. She always does. But you have to promise me you will use this truck for the business. No more games." Caleb's reply was short. "Lol. You are a genius. Dad. She is such a sucker. Get the Raptor. The leather seats are insane." A sucker. I read the words aloud, testing the weight of them on my tongue. I did not feel like a sucker anymore. I felt like a prosecutor. I printed everything. The empty medical claims, the bank statement showing the money laundering from my savings to a car dealership, the photos of my healthy mother shopping, the emails mocking my generosity. I bought a thick, black leather binder and organized the documents with plastic sheet protectors. I arranged them chronologically, building a narrative that was impossible to deny. I stared at the binder sitting on my desk. It looked professional. It looked heavy. It looked like the end of my relationship with my family. "They bought a truck?" Liam asked, his voice dangerously quiet as he stared at the papers spread across our dining table. "A Ford F-150 Raptor," I corrected him, pointing at the bank statement I had highlighted in yellow. "To be precise, $25,000 down payment, the exact amount of my wedding fund. And your mother. She is shopping." Liam picked up the photograph Mark had sent. His hand was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from a rage so intense it radiated off him in waves. Max," I said, my voice eerily calm. "She looks quite healthy for a woman who was supposed to be on a ventilator, doesn't she?" Liam stood up and walked to the window, running his hands through his hair. He turned back, his face set in stone. "I am going with you. Do not even try to stop me. I will not let you walk into that den of vipers alone." "I want you there," I said. "I need a witness." I picked up my phone. It was time to bait the trap. I put it on speaker so Liam could hear the performance. "Mom, it is Harper," I said, forcing a bright, sugary tone that tasted like poison in my mouth. I just wanted to confirm the time. 7 o'clock tonight. "Oh, Harper." My mother's voice filtered through the speaker. She sounded hesitant, likely trying to calculate if she could pull off the act in public. "Are you sure about the Oaks? It is very pricey, and I am still so weak. Maybe we could just order pizza at your father's house." "Nonsense," I insisted. "I am celebrating. Mom, OmniStream gave me a huge bonus for this trip. I want to spoil you. Plus, I want to hear all about Caleb's new business. I heard he is doing so well. I really want to treat the whole family to the best meal in town to celebrate your recovery." There was a brief pause. I could practically feel the greed winning the war against her caution. A free meal at the most exclusive steakhouse in the county, a chance to show off. It was irresistible. "Well, if you insist," she purred. "We will be there. It will be good for Caleb to get out. He has been working so hard." "Tell him to dress up," I said, my eyes locking with Liam's. "I want him to look like the successful businessman he is." The next morning, the day of the dinner, I took a half day off work to handle the logistics of my liberation. My first stop was the bank branch on the corner. I sat across from a personal banker, a young woman who looked confused by my cold intensity. "I need to cancel a recurring wire transfer," I said. $3,500. It goes out on the first of every month to a Wells Fargo account ending in 459. "Certainly," she typed on her keyboard. "Do you want to suspend it for a month, or cancel it permanently?" I cut her off. "Revoke the authorization completely, and while you are at it, I want to remove my name from any joint overdraft protection associated with that account." Next, I called the lawyer Liam had recommended. I spent 40 minutes on the phone in my car, paying for the consultation with a credit card since my savings were gone. I instructed him to draft a formal notice of severance, explicitly stating that I accepted no liability for any future debts incurred by Caleb Miller or my parents. I wanted a legal firewall between my future and their arson. That afternoon, I finished assembling the binder. I had bought a premium leather portfolio, the kind used for high-stakes boardroom presentations. Inside, I placed the evidence, organizing it with professional tabs medical records, bank statements, surveillance photos, emails. I tied a red ribbon around it. It looked expensive. It looked like a gift. The drive to Wisconsin was 2 hours of gray skies and endless cornfields. The car was silent. I felt a heavy weight in my chest, a physical pressure that made it hard to breathe. "Are you okay?" Liam asked, glancing at me as the highway stretched out before us. "I feel like I am driving to a funeral," I admitted, staring at the dashed lines on the road. Not for them, but for the version of them I tried to keep alive in my head. I spent 30 years thinking that if I just paid enough, if I was just good enough, they would finally love me. Today, I am burying that hope. Liam reached across the center console and took my hand. His grip was firm and warm, an anchor in the storm. "You are not burying your family, Harper," he said softly. "You are just clearing away the dead wood so we can plant something new. I am your family now. We are the family." I squeezed his hand back, holding on like it was the only solid thing in a world that was dissolving. I looked at the leather binder sitting in the back seat. It was time to deliver the eulogy. The hostess led us to the private booth I had reserved at the back of the Oaks. It was a dimly lit, mahogany-paneled space that smelled of aged steak and expensive cologne. Liam sat beside me, his body rigid with tension, while I smoothed the napkin over my lap with hands that were terrifyingly steady. I felt like a sniper waiting for the target to walk into the crosshairs. 10 minutes later, they made their entrance. Through the window overlooking the valet circle, I watched the massive black Ford F-150 Raptor pull up. It was aggressively large, gleaming under the streetlights, a $25,000 lie on 4 wheels. Caleb hopped out of the driver's seat, wearing a suit that was slightly too shiny and sunglasses, despite it being 7 o'clock at night. He tossed the keys to the valet with a dismissive flick of his wrist, acting the part of the tycoon he pretended to be. My parents followed. My mother, who had allegedly been at death's door 2 weeks ago, was walking in high heels. However, as soon as she spotted me across the dining room, her posture changed. She slumped her shoulders and placed a trembling hand over her chest, transforming instantly into the fragile invalid. "Harper, darling," she breathed, leaning heavily on my father as they reached the table. "Oh, the doctor said I should be on bed rest. But I just had to see you. My heart is still fluttering, but I am fighting through it." "You are so brave, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "Please, sit down. Order whatever you want." The performance continued as the waiter arrived. My mother, the woman with the critical heart condition, ordered the 20-ounce porterhouse steak with blue cheese butter and a side of loaded mashed potatoes. My father ordered the most expensive scotch on the menu. "To family," my father announced when the drinks arrived, raising his glass high. "And to Caleb. Look at him, Harper, finally got his own wheels. That truck is going to be the foundation of an empire. Miller Logistics is officially on the map." "It is not just a truck," Caleb said, leaning back and spreading his arms across the top of the booth. "It is a mobile office. I have already got, several leads, big contracts. I just need to network a bit more." I took a slow sip of my water, watching them. They were eating food that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, celebrating a purchase made with my stolen dreams, and they did not have a single ounce of shame. I looked at my mother, attacking her steak with vigorous energy, her weak heart miraculously forgotten in the presence of red meat. I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the food. It was a physical reaction to the rot sitting across from me. Liam remained silent, his eyes dark, watching Caleb with the intensity of a predator tracking prey. When the dessert menus arrived, Caleb decided to twist the knife. He picked at his teeth with a toothpick, looking at me with a smirk that made my skin crawl. "So, Mom told me about the wedding," he said casually. "Bummer about postponing it. But hey, it is for the best. Right, I mean. You guys were rushing into it anyway." "We postponed it to save Mom's life," Liam said, his voice low and dangerous. "Right, right," Caleb waved his hand dismissively. "And that is great. But honestly, Harper, you are 29? You have plenty of time to save up again. You are young. You can make that money back in a year or two." "No big deal." "Exactly," my father chimed in, nodding sagely. "In fact, Harper, your mother and I were talking. Since you do not have those wedding expenses looming over you anymore, we were thinking you could help Caleb with the insurance on the Raptor. Commercial insurance is steep. If you could cover the premiums for a year, it would really give the business a leg up. Think of it as an investment," my mother added, wiping grease from her chin. "Once Caleb makes it big, he will pay for your wedding. He will buy you a better dress than whatever you were going to get." The silence that followed was absolute. I looked at them, my father, calculating and weak, my mother, manipulative and greedy, my brother, entitled and delusional. They were not just asking for my money. They were cannibalizing my future and asking me to thank them for the privilege. "I am so glad you brought that up," I said softly. A cold smile spread across my face, one that did not reach my eyes, because I actually prepared a special gift for the family tonight. Something to celebrate this expansion. I reached into my large tote bag and pulled out the heavy black leather binder. It hit the table with a solid, authoritative thud that made the silverware rattle. "What is this?" my mother asked, eyeing the expensive leather with interest. "Is it a check?" "Better?" I said. I placed the binder on the rotating center of the table. With a flick of my wrist, I spun the Lazy Susan. The binder glided past the breadbasket, past the empty wine glasses, and came to a stop directly in front of my father. "Open it!" I commanded. "I think you will find the first page very interesting." My father's hand hovered over the leather cover. He looked at me, confusion warring with suspicion in his eyes, before he finally flipped it open. I watched the blood drain from his face as he read the title page. Printed in bold, 24-point font, evidence of medical fraud and misappropriation of assets. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "Turn the page," I said, my tone as cold and precise as if I were leading a quarterly review at OmniStream. Page 1. Authenticated records from Blue Cross Blue Shield and Mercy General Hospital. As you can see, there was no emergency admission on the 15th. There was no cardiac event. There is no scheduled surgery. Mom, your heart is in perfect condition. My mother froze, her fork halfway to her mouth, a piece of expensive steak dripping juice onto the tablecloth. Page 2, I continued, reaching over to flip the sheet for him. Bank records from your Wells Fargo account. You received a wire transfer of $25,000 from me at 2 in the morning. At 6 in the morning, you wired exactly $25,000 to Midwest Ford and Truck Center. "Harper, stop it!" Caleb hissed, his eyes darting around the restaurant. "You are embarrassing us." "I am not finished," I said, my voice rising just enough to carry to the neighboring tables. Page 3, an email from Dad to Caleb. Quote, "Your sister is soft. I just have to scare her a little. She is such a sucker." End quote. The silence at the table was shattered. Caleb slammed his hand down, making the wine glasses jump. He lunged across the table, his face twisted in ugly rage. "Give me that!" he shouted, reaching for the binder. Liam moved faster than I had ever seen. He caught Caleb's wrist in midair and shoved him back into the booth with a force that knocked the wind out of him. "Sit down," Liam growled, "or I will put you through that wall." People were staring now. The low hum of conversation in the restaurant had died away, replaced by the tension radiating from our booth. My mother abandoned her act. She didn't clutch her chest. She didn't gasp for air. Instead, her face crumpled into a mask of vicious, tearful indignation. "How dare you!" she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. "You check up on us. You audit your own parents. We needed that money. Your brother needed a start. You are sitting on a pile of cash in the city, and you begrudge us a little help. You are so selfish. You count every penny while we suffer. Suffer." I laughed, a sharp, jagged sound. "You call driving a $60,000 truck suffering that was not spare cash. Mom, that was my wedding. That was 4 years of eating leftovers and skipping doctor appointments. I canceled my life because I thought you were dying. He needs the truck for his image," my mother wailed, slamming her hand on the table. "It is his future. You can always get married later." "You ungrateful brat," my father roared, finding his voice. He pointed a shaking finger at me. "We raised you, we fed you, we put a roof over your head. Is this how you repay us, by humiliating us in public, by airing our dirty laundry?" I stood up. I felt 10 feet tall. The fear that had ruled my life for 29 years evaporated, replaced by a burning, righteous anger. "You raised me," I asked, my voice cutting through his shouting like a blade. "Let's talk about repayment. Since I was 22 years old, I have transferred $3,500 to you every single month. I did the math last night. Do you know what the total is?" I leaned over the table, forcing him to look me in the eye. $210,000. I enunciated every syllable. "That is the total. I have bought your house twice over. I have paid for every meal you ate, every shirt on your back, and every mistake Caleb made for the last 7 years. I didn't owe you a retirement plan just because I was born." My father opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked small. He looked defeated. "And here is the reality check," I said, looking at Caleb, who was sulking in the corner of the booth. "There is no business. That truck is a liability, not an asset. And since you have no income, and Mom and Dad have no savings because they spent it all on you, the bank is going to come for it in about 3 months. And when they do not call me." I picked up my napkin and dropped it onto my untouched plate. It was the white flag of my surrender to their madness and the victory banner of my freedom. "I am not paying for this dinner," I said, grabbing my purse. "And I canceled the monthly transfer this morning. The Harper ATM is officially out of order, permanently." "You can't do that," my mother screamed, panic finally setting in as the reality of the money cutting off hit her. "Harper, we will lose the house." "Then you better ask the entrepreneur to sell his truck," I said without looking back. "Come on, Liam, we are leaving." The heavy oak door of the restaurant swung shut behind us, cutting off the sound of my mother's frantic screaming. The silence of the parking lot was instant and profound. I took a deep breath, inhaling the cool night air, and for the first time in years, my lungs expanded fully. "They are going to have a hard time paying for that porterhouse," Liam remarked dryly as he unlocked the car. "That bottle of scotch alone was $300. "Not my problem," I said, sliding into the passenger seat. I pulled out my phone before Liam even started the engine. One by one, I went through my contact list. Mom, block. Dad, block. Caleb, block. I opened Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp and did the same. With every tap of my finger, I felt a chain snapping, a weight falling away. "It is done," I whispered as we pulled onto the highway, leaving the town where I grew up in the rearview mirror. "I am free." The fallout was swift and catastrophic, just as I had predicted. I did not go looking for the news, but in a small town, gossip travels faster than light. A month later, my cousin sent me a message. She told me that the bank had repossessed the Ford F-150 Raptor less than 30 days after that dinner. Caleb had missed the very first payment, and since the down payment was gone, The dealership and the bank wasted no time in reclaiming their property, but the truck was just the first domino. Without my monthly transfer of $3,500, my parents' financial house of cards collapsed immediately. They had relied on my money to cover their mortgage for so long that they had forgotten how to budget for reality. The bank served them a foreclosure notice within weeks. Desperate to avoid eviction, they sold the house in a fire sale, accepting an offer far below market value just to clear the immediate debts. They moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. My cousin told me the walls were thin and the heating was unreliable. Caleb moved in with them, sleeping on a pull-out couch in the living room. Apparently, the entrepreneur spent his days screaming at my parents, blaming them for the loss of his truck, while they screamed back at him for ruining their retirement. They were trapped together in a prison of their own making, miserable and loud. When I heard this, I waited for the guilt to come. I waited for that familiar pang of responsibility, the urge to fix it, to save them. It never came. Instead, I just felt a quiet, cool relief. They were facing the consequences of their own actions for the first time in their lives. 2 months after the dinner, Liam drove me back to the botanical gardens. The sun was shining through the glass panes of the greenhouse just as it had the first time we visited. The air still smelled of jasmine and damp earth. We had a cancellation for a Saturday in November, the coordinator told us, smiling. It is yours if you want it. I looked at Liam. He was watching me with that same patient, loving look he had worn through every storm. Do we have the deposit? He asked gently. I opened my banking app. The balance was not impressive. It was nowhere near $25,000 anymore. It was modest, built up from 2 months of keeping my own paycheck. But as I looked at that number, I realized something profound. Every single cent of it belonged to me. No one was going to call me at 2 a.m. to demand it. No one was going to guilt me into giving it away. We have enough, I said, smiling at him. We have exactly enough. I realized then that the $25,000 I had lost was not a tragedy. It was a severance package. It was the fee I had to pay to break the contract with a family that saw me as nothing more than a resource. It was a high price. Yes, but buying my freedom was worth every penny. Let's book it, I told the coordinator. We walked out of the greenhouse hand in hand. I thought about my wedding day. My parents would not be there to walk me down the aisle. My brother would not be there to make a toast. The seats on the bride's side would be filled with friends, colleagues, and Liam's family who had welcomed me as one of their own. And that was okay. I looked up at the blue sky, feeling lighter than I ever thought possible. I was Harper Miller, and for the first time in my life, I was not a daughter, a savior, or an ATM. I was just a woman who was finally, truly free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please leave a comment below to share your thoughts, and let's chat. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lily Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit that hype button to help this story reach even more people who might need to hear it.